Hey, Matt, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, excited to have you on. Tell us who you are, what you do.
Yeah, so Matt Kovacs, I'm the president of Blaze PR. So we are a lifestyle agency and really run through a number of categories, if you will, from CPG and beverages, real estate, restaurants, retail. So that's our big ones. And really, I look at it as I'm sort of just driving the bus. We have a really good team, and really look at ways to impact that along with clients, and really mentor and manage my staff.
Yeah. Well, I want to get into more about how you're mentoring and coaching your staff because
Mhm.
I, I tell a lot of agency founders that we need to evolve their role over the years because when we first start an agency, we're doing everything and we're that operator.
Yeah.
And as you start managing people, right, and you start transitioning that role, it gets a little bit harder. And a lot of us, including me, I hated managing people. I'm horrible at managing people. I always hired people that could manage themselves. So, how do you look at managing and mentoring your team?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting approach, and I think twofold. With obviously, from my background in my degree was more of interpersonal communications and more studying the theories of communication. So I think on one level that was helpful. I sort of fell into PR, if that makes sense. And then the other thing is, my parents were teachers. My dad was a third grade teacher, and my mom was high school English. So it was a lot of that just through osmosis, and just really understanding being that sort of educator mindset of really how to treat people, how to really look at it from that standpoint. And so I look at it as from a skill set standpoint. The goal when you bring people on is they should have the chops and know, and obviously educate them in the way where we do business, if you will. But I think it's really understanding what makes them tick and how do you motivate and not being cliche of coaching, but really looking at, okay, this person needs daily touch bases, calls, this person weekly, but giving them more kudos, really understanding all the elements that really can help people feel appreciated, but also building a team so that it's not everyone's in a silo, that we all understand as a group when we can celebrate successes and how everyone can build each other up. So it doesn't always have to fall on myself or an EVP or someone, but people can really gravitate towards that. And I think what's been interesting coming out of COVID now is learning with a lot of the entry levels and the peoples that didn't have the same day to day, every day, 9 to 5s, and in that
They've never worked in an office. Yeah.
never. And even when we do now, it feels not forced, but it just feels different. You don't have, even when you do like, hey, let's have a staff lunch, and we bring in even our parent companies, we come in and do stuff, but then everyone runs off back to their Zooms, and you're in offices or you're in the room, but it's not the same aspect. We're used to hang out, and then even happy hours or any of these things that would happen just naturally. Everything is a little more scheduled and regimented in that sake.
One of the biggest things I miss running the agency and having an office was going out to lunch with everybody and then spending the midnight oil at the office, right, getting the dinners,
Yeah.
and just we were all in it together. And I
Yep.
feel that working, like, I'll never go back to working at an office. I never
Sure.
could do that.
Yeah. Yep.
But I miss that because when I talk to my old teammates and old managers and all that kind of stuff, we talk about those kind of stories, and it was so much fun.
Well, and it's the moments. It's the unscripted elements. Even just as things, you might be out as a group, but as things break down, it gets to like whatever 10 people to 5 to 3, and then in those those conversations, that's where many times creative ideas come out of, or just the guard is down, and you can just have more of an open discussion. And I'm with you; those things are sort of gone, or it's even few and far between. You might get one or two of those a year versus having one a month that were just
Yeah,
really those moments. And that's what stuck to your point of having those connectivity with those previous, coworkers, buddies, whatever. It's just harder now. And I think that's, we try and engage. And even just, from a networking aspect, even trying to go to events, by the time you get there and it's never the amount of people that it used to be. And then even just trying to build those conversations, you're not finding that, the elements, that spark that used to be there.
yeah. I see, and what we do now, since we're all virtual, we'll do 2 or 3 events a year,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where we have everybody come in and that kind of stuff. And that really connects and really kind of sets it up for the year,
Yeah.
or the next couple of months. But there still is that opportunity. But, with everything, everything evolves, everything changes, and, we get faster, right? I remember we were kind of on the forefront. So I sold my first agency in 2011. And I remember, like, in 2009, I remember we had a lot of people, because we were like you. I want to talk more about winning the best place to work, because we
Yeah.
got the best place to work in Atlanta,
Right.
which that was my proudest award, because all
Yeah.
the other awards we all know are kind of bullshit. Like, you
Yeah.
can pay for those awards. The winning the best place is, they send surveys to your team and
Mhm.
they have to fill that out in order
Yeah.
to win. And I remember our employees really, some had huge long commutes,
Yeah.
like hour, 2 hour commutes
Mhm.
into Atlanta from the outskirts. And because we were in a major city. And so a lot of times we'd be like, no, flex time, man, work from home. You'll get way more work done. I feel like now, especially with a lot of people virtual, we're
Mhm.
getting so much more work done.
Yeah. When it's those hours, again, I'm an early riser, just up with the dogs and stuff. So that, like, 4 or 5 or 6 to, 5 a.m. ish, in those moments, you have uninterrupted quiet time to do stuff. Then the day starts. Then, the clients show up, office, all those people.
Oh,
And then even at night, same thing. You might have 2, 3 hours uninterrupted. And then during the day, they're pulled in so many different directions. But I think those are aspects, to your point, that, and everyone feels that. I see which team members, some are more the morning people, where we'll get a lot done together, sitting probably quietly in our houses. And then there's the nighttime people, same thing. They get caught up, they go through stuff. But knowing in the middle of those days, there might be a meeting or we might have an event. So they're driving, to your point, 1 or 2 hours to manage to do it. And then it's just time that they're losing. And I think that's an interesting way for them to feel the value of it, because, we don't push that. Yes, we're hybrid to that point, but it's gotten looser and looser, because
yeah.
even that, the commutes to come in and the traffic and the parking and all those things that we just take for granted, it's just now those extra layers.
Yeah. I want to talk about, what's a time in your career where you've evolved your role,
Mm-hmm.
right? Of kind of, because we don't start where we're ending up right now.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
a lot of evolution that goes through it. Is there a moment in time when you've kind of evolved your role, and, like, what was that? What was the impact it had on your agency?
Yeah, I think you touched on it in the beginning, where it was, in the beginnings of just coming, obviously my first agency, I was there for 11 years. But then, when I came to Blaze, those first few years, it was figuring out, the lay of the land, and then also having to do everything. And then as we got more and more the evolution of it and being able to have better clients, better team, that's when you could sort of, I had that opportunity to step back and be like, okay, this gives us a chance to do more of the development from the staffing, the managing, mentoring, and then also from a business development standpoint, to really raise our game in that regard, to be able to get the larger, clients, the better, types of opportunities. And I think that probably in that, halfway through this, so maybe 7, 8 years ago, you just felt that change and the sea change. And then obviously COVID hits. And then that becomes, you almost you're back to doing everything, but also building, because there was still the momentum in those times. And we were fortunate. We didn't, obviously we lost clients, but we didn't lose team, and we were still able to win other business, throughout that first year. And I think that was something that I just saw that, happen. And it also builds confidence, and you have to have that confidence that, that you can do this, and, that it's not unlike riding a bike, but having that confidence to be able to pull it off and be able to bring it through. And the team needs to see that. They need to see the poise. They need to see that confidence, because, as things are going on, clients come to you with the craziest, wackiest, okay, this is happening, help me. And then to be able to bring it to life, and the team to be able to see everyone pull it together, that's been something I've learned and just seen, like, go with it. It's the trust your gut, but that gut has a lot of that experience that comes with it, and just the track record. And now
Yeah.
it is funny now, at that age, or just, experience in the career, where, it used to be, we launched this, in 2002. And the team now, like, they turn their head like 2002. So now it's like, okay, I need to build a new, in 2015, we did this. You have to build different markers in time so that they understand it, because it was such a different time earlier versus now. and to have a reference point for everyone, that's been an interesting, element as well.
Which comes first, better clients or better team?
I think the better team. I think that really helps from a confidence standpoint, and because obviously you're putting yourself out there with, in front of a client. They need to feel that we get along together. There's no drama. Where you can feel that cohesion, and I think that builds them into the confidence of like, yes, I will entrust my brand to this. I think the better clients, they can see through that right away, and they don't want it to be just myself. It's not Matt PR. They want to say, okay, I have a full team. And yes, there's levels and layers, but they want to understand that they can be proud to be able to talk about us, bring us into the room, whatever it is, and also the results. When you have a shaky team and that weak part, or that part that's still learning, you have to have the team really solid.
Yeah, because there's a lot of people I talk to, they are really confused at which comes first. And I was like, you're not going to get better clients without a great team, or you're not going to hold on to those clients. And it's just that roller coaster ride, especially if you get the great client and you don't have a great team. That means all that weight is on your shoulders.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you're going to focus all your time on that delivery, which then something else is going to miss out. And then you're going to be that bottleneck. And then you're holding the agency back.
Yeah. I agree.
Right?
Yeah. Yep. I think what's been interesting too is I've had more freedoms as well to be engaged with clients at a different level, where I'm not in the tactical or the status calls. I can just have a separate conversation in a way and talk about business, what's going on beyond just the account work, what's going on for them. And I think that's something I've taught my team. Back to the teachers as parents, we make a point. We have a whole database of our clients' birthdays, their dogs' names, their kids' names, all those things that are the little things. And even if you just acknowledge it, it's not about gifts or cards or bits. Just like, hey, happy anniversary. And they're like, what? How did you remember that? Those things I think are really interesting, that we've tried to, again, humanize the agency on some level, because people buy people, and they really want to understand that you're a part of this and that it's a partnership. It's not a transactional relationship, that we're really there for them. And, it's those little things I think that have really helped us.
Can you tell us about the time where you kind of step back from delivery in order to have someone lower level on your team to kind of step up, and tell us kind of what happened from that?
Yeah, I think a really good example happened pretty recently, about 6 months ago. So we were in a pitch for the Indian tribe. So they're here in Southern California, and our account coordinator that was really passionate about obviously Indian relations through the years with the United States and the treatments, and just really studied it as a personal goal. Listened to every podcast, read all these books, would deep dive for herself. And it really became, as we went through the blocking and tackling of the RFP and then meeting people, and I had previous experience with 3 other tribes. So that was part of it, but also we were able to really give her the opportunity. She was in the big pitch, in front of everyone as part of it. And that was really, I think, a testament to us to put, our faith into her, and that she came through and was really knowledgeable on things that we were still learning as, we came through with the tribe. So I think that was something that, and we still talk to it. We've had other meetings where we referenced the fact that she was able to do that. And I think it really, what it did, the bond is stronger now with, I think, everyone in the agency, because she was able to perform, and that we gave her that platform. But also I think it showed the depths of our team. Isn't just, I do restaurant PR. I only focus on restaurants. I only know these 20 restaurant media. It's more well-rounded and well-read as a group. And I think that was something that, when you look at it from, we had the agency owner was there, who's, in his 70s. And then you have someone that's, 24, 25 in this pitch. And I think that really, they were impressed because of the depth, but also the experience, but also the knowledge base. And I think that's something that we really look at. And you try and replicate that. Obviously, it's not going to work every time. And it was her own personal passion that really came to life. But I think that was something that really at least opened my eyes to ways that we can, tap into the group.
So you've been in the agency world for a long time, probably longer than me. And, the agencies, everything has really evolved. Why do you think you guys are still doing RFPs?
You know, it's funny.
And
I'm 100% with you. The rarely will we do one. I'll say maybe one or two a year. And I
okay,
think this one, the way we judge it, we do have a criteria that we go through. One is, do we have the experience? In this
yep,
one, again, because it was, with the Indian tribes and the relationships and the work we had done. And I think also what I try and do is, because it's a lot of work, in knowing that we
heck
don't
yeah,
want to do that, is really talk to the team. Hey, this opportunity came to us, almost presenting it to them, pitching the team. Do we want to go down this path? Because it's going to be, again, longer nights, more work, all those aspects. But I think for this one, the upside was, yeah, this was something that there was a goal behind, a passion. And because it's, obviously the tribe itself owns a number of properties and all the other elements, this was not part of it. And I think that was, for us, was even more interesting to really be a part of it, because they're their own nation, they're their own government. So I think there was a learning factor for us to be a part of. And I think on the initial calls, we really hit it off with the group. I think the way we approach PR and the way we approached just the way we work in client service. And then we obviously gave different references and clients that we've had forever talked about us in that regard. The results they're going to talk about, but it was more about how we work from an interpersonal standpoint. So that was one
yeah.
example of why we did it. I think for the most part, yes. If it's an RFP, yeah, it's a cattle call. If you have no connection, if it's not worth the time, we're not going to do that. But there's times where throwing it out there. And I looked at it. The other thing was, to be honest, the group hadn't done an RFP in a while. And as painful as they can be, I think sometimes it's good for them to understand the process and just the depth and even the questions. I can even remember in one of the Zooms we had, why do they ask this? Why do they want this stuff? This is, and I said, look, sometimes this is from procurement. And the person that we're dealing with, if we're fortunate to win, they're not even, this is stuff that is just more, legalese and all the other stuff, but you got to
Yeah.
do it. And I've had a couple times, through the years, where you win because you did the work. They ask 50 questions. You got to fill out all 50. You can't think, well, this doesn't apply to us. We'll just do these. I'm going to do 1, 5, and 7.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you have to go through it. And I think that's something that, like I said, one or two a year we'll go forth when it makes sense. But yeah, this was one, again, and we were fortunate to win. But I think it made sense at that nature.
Yeah, I always look at RFPs as there's two winners to RFPs, the first one out and the one that wins.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Right. And it just, RFP stands for real fucking problem. Is
Mm-hmm.
I hated them. I literally, I always thought they were a waste of time. I hated just even the pitch. I literally, when people would come to us like Lotus Cars or whoever
Yeah.
and say, look, we're not going to do it, but there's a lot of gaps that you're missing in this RFP. And if you would like to get together with us, we can do a strategy session based on this. Now, we will charge for this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I would make them pay me.
Yeah.
And guess what? We almost won every single deal that we wanted.
That's awesome.
That we did that.
Yeah.
Right. And, it's just, I think the times are changing very quick, especially, unless you're working with, the stupid, cola company from Atlanta with the red logo, right? Like, those are going to beat every agency up.
Yeah. Yep.
And we were like, no, we're not going to do that. Like, we're not going to work with you anymore.
I think that the other thing is what I've seen, or at least I've felt, is just from a networking standpoint, that the introductions are happening, I think, more organically, and that they're not, I'll say, they're looking for a pitch, but it doesn't feel as deep. It's more about, okay, I've been vetted, I've been trusted, I was told, 3 different people told me to talk to you guys. Like, that's, I think, more invaluable to be able to have that tee up. And yes, you put a plan together or a scope, but nothing, until we get hired, then we go deeper and longer and we go into all the aspects we do. But it's a way to have that, sort of close the gap than just be through that cattle call.
Yeah, I just remember we would put so much work into an RFP. Like they would have everything they need in order to go do. So like literally I gave them strategy for free. Mm-hmm. All they had to do was hire us for execution, which you're not making much money on execution.
Yeah.
And then I just remember too watching, there was a couple of shows I think that came out. I mean, even with, Donny Deutsch, if people remember them, right? Like he would, come on Good Morning America and talk about the Super Bowl commercials and that kind of stuff, or he was on The Apprentice and that kind of, and they would talk about like all these, pitches, and like agencies would put in 30, 40 grand
Mm-hmm.
into a pitch that they didn't have any guarantee on. And I'm like, no, like us as agency leaders, we got to take this back. Like, I'm so against the RFP unless they want to pay me to do the RFP. And I'm like, all right, I'll do that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, well, that's cool. What's your guys' outlook with, obviously the evolution of AI, markets changing, a lot of these big companies, like I just read an article from Forrester. They did research saying, 20% of agency roles in the end of 26 are gone.
Yeah, that's scary.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and I could break down a little bit more about my thoughts on that.
Mm-hmm.
But like, what are you telling your team? How are you guys staying, in front and utilizing AI rather than kind of being fearful?
Yeah, I think, and even to like last year at this time, there was the doom and gloom of, AI is going to replace everything. You won't need agencies, you won't need media. The bots will just talk to each other, and you'll get pitches and then articles that'll come out of this. Where we've seen that, the more we've gone through that, it's, part of our job is to always try and stay ahead of that and be involved in that. So we've had internally, we try and set up, different guardrails of using AI for, if it's helping to review press releases, for pitches, and we have different stopgaps. You can't just send a release to a client or a pitch to out until it's been reviewed by 2 or 3 people, because the AI is still just going to not get it. And so we want to make sure if it's helping versus just being lazy and using it that way. So I think that's one factor. We've had discussions with clients about AI and different things they're seeing, and even when they're using internally for memos or for different aspects, and really trying to educate them through it, because they look at us, again, we're supposed to be counsel. So we're trying to educate them through the process as to what's out there. We've changed a number of the crisis plans for clients to include that for deepfakes and for different AI aspects that could become a factor that, that they need to run it through legal, so that legal understands if this stuff, goes down, how we're going to approach this, or even from alerting media if something happens. So I think it's more top of mind for everyone, and we try and go back to that and ensure that they're up to speed on things as part of our even just roundups with obviously coverage. We're trying to give them educational elements too of what they're seeing within AI, so that we can become sort of that Sherpa for them and don't feel that they're getting information or misinformation on their own. We want to make sure that we can help control that narrative for them, and that they feel educated as well, because and many times it's their CEOs, CMOs, different stakeholders that are going to come to them with either, hey, why don't we just use AI? Why do we need to have this or that? And they can have a better understanding and also feel confident in what they're saying as to what's going on out there.
Yeah, I look at it, when I read that article, like a lot of agency owners, I think a lot of agencies are fearful AI will replace them. But I think adding AI to an agency where the systems are not in place, your agency's toast.
Yeah.
But if you have the right leadership, the right systems, adding AI will speed up the evolution of your agency substantially. Like if you look at a lot of the PE firms, especially this past year, the agencies that have AI baked into everything that they're doing and they're getting more efficient, they're almost adding superpowers to their team and all of this stuff, they're getting an 8 to 10x multiple. Not right. Like,
wow. Yeah.
And I'm talking about smaller agencies, like agencies of like $1 million in EBITDA, right? Where traditionally they would get 4 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if they're leveraging, right, it's not all based on EBITDA anymore. These PE firms are really looking for, AI integrated and evolved through the agency, not just using ChatGPT.
Right.
So I look at it as a huge way to destroy your competitors.
Right. That's true. And I think that the other element is for the team, I think what it's done is help them to go process things differently, look at it differently, and feel more confident in themselves to understand that they do have, all of them have this, again, to your point, superpower, or this added benefit in their pocket to be able to go through things and be able to get even more stuff done, quality and quantity, but just feel like, okay, I'm getting this, I can do more.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I've been I always felt like as my agency would only grow as fast, or my business would only grow as fast as I would grow.
Sure.
And the slowest person on the team is always the anchor. So I was always like, how can I evolve my role faster? So I kind of always look at it like, how can I use AI to evolve my role faster?
Mm-hmm.
But then also, how can the team evolve their role and get more efficient and get smarter, make faster decisions? Because people are coming to us for results. The
Mm-hmm.
faster we can get results, the more impact we can get for them,
Yeah.
we're going to win. Versus the, kind of the old way, people would come to us and kind of do a pitch, and it takes them 6-8 months to see a little bit of momentum if you even communicate that to them.
Yep.
And then they're always bitching about, oh, my agency, they suck and all that kind of stuff, right? And then it's the agency record,
Yeah.
tumble all the way down the mountain. And so I think this is we've never seen anything like this. I'm so excited. When it first came out, I was like, people are doomed. And I think the people that don't use it are doomed.
Yeah. Yep.
But the people that leverage it are going to have huge opportunity. And when I say leverage, this is not just chatting with it. It's literally baking it everything.
Yeah.
Like, you are an AI leveraged agency. That's kind of how I look at it.
I think what's interesting too is when I meet or engage with people that aren't using it. To me, that's just it just baffles me of not even having even a cursory level, just like, hey, we're doing this or that, but they're just like, no, I'm good, and that's, you have your head in the sand. That's like in the early '90s saying I'm not going to use the internet. It's so crazy that that's still out there even after this, the past year. Maybe last year at this time, yes, people were still understanding it, but it's we just had a conversation probably about 2 weeks ago of someone we met with that was just. It was like we were speaking a foreign language, which was really interesting to us, and that gave us confidence as well. Like, okay, we're doing the right stuff. Then let's keep, expanding and using it, because obviously we see that there's people that just still don't get it.
Yeah, I just got off a mastermind call a little while ago with a bunch of agencies, and I was asking, what's the weirdest request you ever got? And one agency owner was like, yeah, we're meeting with this client. He's like 70 years old. And we were talking about designing a website for them. And he goes, is it going to have buttons? And they were like, what are you talking about? Like, yeah, is the site going to have buttons? And they were like, you mean links? Yeah, links. Like, this was like 2 years ago.
Sure. Wow. That's
So
awesome.
yeah, I was surprised they still were in business. Honestly, I was like, man, that's what. Did this person come out of like the Ice Age? So,
wow.
But awesome. Well, Matt, this has been a lot of fun. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Yeah.
Everyone listening, make sure you subscribe to the show. Make sure you check out all the other amazing guests we have on. It's always great to get perspectives from everybody, because I always tell everybody, especially when you're on social media, there's no such thing as a silver bullet. You all know who you are doing that ad. Hopefully you're not listening to my show, because I don't want to help you out when you kind of sell those silver bullets. You have to pick all that silver from all those different people, create your own silver bullet, and do it your own way. And until next time, have a swank day.